morning again. On behalf of all the organizers, I extend a very warm welcome to one and all. Today's event promises to be an engaging and thought-provoking journey into the tribal world of India.
History endowment was set up by his family in the decade of 2000. His centenary was celebrated in 2017 by bringing scholars from India and overseas on the role of princely states in the development of modern India. As you know, post-independence, the focus was on the new India, the new political parties, and they wanted the country to forget the colonial rule and the rule of princely states. So if you look at our history, the role of many princely states in the development of India, like Mysore, Baroda, Travancore, etc., is grossly underplayed. And to correct this positioning, we created this international seminar where people from Oxford, Cambridge, US, Tokyo, and leading Indian universities came and spoke of the importance of how India was built and how many parts of India administered by the princely states was far better administered for the good of the people. With Manipal University, DSA History Series was conceived, and Bastar is the 10th book brought out by the series. Some are out of the conference, some are authored, 2 are edited and authored by me, others are authored by very eminent people like Professor Shadakshari Shettar, who is no longer with us here, and the like. And Bastar is the 10th book, and we are proud, and these books are displayed along with the Bastar book in the foyer. If anybody wants to browse them, it's available. If anybody wants to buy them, it's also available. Now, why did the DSA endowment sponsor the work on Bastar? It covers the topic of DSA's interest, transfer of power from princely states. Thanks to Ram's accepting our grant, we were able to partake in bringing this work out. I would like you to enjoy the symposium and the book release. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that insightful introduction to the endowment's ongoing contribution to historic scholarship, especially to the role of princely states. As they say, the role of history and historians is to ensure that it's not just the dominant narrative that becomes the main story, but to bring in all the alternative perspectives. We now move on to the formal release of Bastar 1862. May I request Shri Chiranjeev Singh, former ambassador to UNESCO, to kindly do the honors. I also invite all guests on the dais and Srimati Surabhi Gurukar, the book covers designer, to join the release ceremony. She's a fantastic artist. Bastar 1862 to introduce the book and its historical context. Dr. Ram, please.
Namaskara, ellarigu. Distinguished guests of honor, Shri Chiranjeev Singh and Dr. S.K. Aruni, Shri D.A. Prasanna and Shri K.S. Ram, and my dear friends and relatives gathered here. This book being released today, in fact, is 2 books in one binding. As editors, we have written separate introduction to each of the books and have added notes and pictures to make them reader-friendly. The text of both the books is original, complete, and unabridged. Both the books are related to Bastar, but the authors are different and the books are separated in terms of writing by 100 years. Where is Bastar? It is in the present day state of Chhattisgarh. River Godavari's Dakshina Tira, that's the southern bank, gets mentioned in our puja. The northern side, the Uttara Tira, rarely comes to mind. Why? The northern side of Godavari is the densely forested area mentioned in the Ramayana as Dandakaranya. Bastar is in the heart of Dandakaranya. It was ruled by a branch of the dynasty of Warangal almost since the time of the Wadayars. Rule began in Mysore. For Europeans, Dandakaranya remained an obscure and no-go region because they believed that it was inhabited by cannibals who had a special preference for white-skinned folk. Hence, it was marked as uncharted territory in early British maps of India. The first of the two books, titled A Report on the Dependency of Bastar, was written in 1862 by an English bureaucrat, C.L.R. Glassford. He was the first white person to explore Bastar in fair depth. This was shortly after 1857 mutiny, when India came under the British Crown and the British Raj began. Captain Glassford and his troop crossed the Godavari and Indravati rivers and toured through Bastar on horseback in the summer of 1861 and 1862. His report is a very insightful and interesting narrative. In fact, it provided a template for many such reports that followed. It presents the first steps in the process of imperialism when a virgin territory is taken over. The new British had to feel the political pulse and gauge the resistance ability of native rulers. Most importantly, the new regime had to do a resource inventory survey in uncharted territories to plan for the expansion of the trade. Bastar is one such uncharted territory, vast in area and rich in forest and mineral resources. Interestingly, Glassford does not use the word development as we understand the term today for British role in Bastar. He uses a blunt expression, opening up of Bastar for trade. This reveals the imperial value system. Bastar tribes, mostly Gonds, practiced their own art of living. It was based on simple sedentary lifestyle, harmony with nature, subsistence economy, and minimalism. थोड़ा है, थोड़े की ज़रूरत है. Glassford, understandably, was disappointed by this. He felt that the tribes were ill-suited for large-scale trade. In short, they were useless to the British purpose. Traders with fire in their bellies were needed. To this end, in course of time, the government invited and pampered Rohilla tradesmen to come to Bastar and kickstart trade. They became de facto government servants when it came to bossing over the tribes. Begar and Bisaha laws helped them to force villagers to gather forest produces for them, almost for free, and so began the predatory practice of in timber and non-timber trade in Bastar. The traders felt no heartbreak because they convinced themselves that this was lawful because it was facilitated by law. This has been explained by us in our introduction to the book. 70 years later, in 1930, another British administrator, Wilfred Gregson, abolished Begar and Bisaha and removed the fact that trade was adopted as a strategy for Bastar. A century later, we are still groping to find a fair and feasible model of development that is compatible with the tribal values and new age needs. About the second book that is I, Pravir, the Adivasi god, was written by the last Kakatiya ruler of Bastar around 1961. So the first one was 1861 and 62, and it is 1961. 5 years later, he was allegedly killed by the state agencies in 1966. His book is a personal outpour of disappointment with the new order in independent India. Maharaja Pravir was deeply revered by his people. Such immense popularity became the cause of his undoing. The Maharaja was a teenager when he had signed the deed of accession, merging Bastar in the Indian Union. He did so on the assurance that India will be a union of states. He took this to mean a union of princely states. However, the act of reorganization of states based on language obliterated the very identity of princely states. Maharaja Pravir's profound influence over the tribes in Bastar made him a threat to politicians at all levels. From Delhi down to Bastar, the impact of petty local politicians in shaping the course of history is generally overlooked by historians. These petty local politicians with inflated aspirations craved for space in the post-independence India. They felt Pravir was choking their prospects. They conspired and poisoned the ears of top leaders in Bhopal and Delhi with false narratives about the Maharaja. This caused a tribal uprising in support of Pravir. But Pravir found himself increasingly alienated in the new political order that was hitting him below the belt and distancing him from his people. His dreams were shattered. He felt terribly betrayed by the government. He was hounded, declared insane, stripped of his title, impoverished, and eventually assassinated on the footsteps of his palace in 1966. The book presents his story in his own words. His story is not an isolated case. It represents, in varying degree, the crude end to princely governance post-independence. It was as if India was born in 1947 and had no legacy from the past to carry forward. The prospect of assimilation into our constitution of the time-tested points of good governance in the former princely states was cut off. In management lexicon, it points to a flawed management change. The death of Maharaja Pravir left a fatal void. A link between the tribes and the government got cut. Secondly, Dandakaranya in general and Bastar in particular was a vital buffer zone linking North India and South India. This connection was cut by design. We are now witnessing the consequences of this. One cannot resist speculating how a meaningful involvement of Pravir in governance could have helped Bastar, especially in respect of three key issues. Number one, preempting Naxalism, which is running even today in Bastar. Number two, resolving the north-south divide in India. And number three, shaping our approach to sustainable tribal development. So, for more immersion, we invite you to please get and read the book and share it with your friends. We have provided an introduction, map, brief notes, and pictures. Surabhi Gurukar has done the cover design, and Manipal University has produced the book excellently. We wish you all a happy reading experience. Thank you once again.